Hello everyone, welcome back to our course Spread 161 Assessment and Learning 2. And today we are taking and diving into a very important aspect of student development. We often focus on their grades, on their skills, but there are also things that we need to also take into consideration, which is also part of their success, which is affective domain. So for today's lesson, we are going to discuss lesson 3.2, which is all about the development of effective assessment tools. Take a look at this image. It perfectly captures what we are talking about. Wherein students aren't just brains in a desk. They are complex individuals with feelings, frustrations, joys, and attitudes. Our job as educators is to understand and assess these emotions to better support their learning. But usually it's what I have also shared to you, last meeting, that we often talk about the big three, the CAP, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Now, remember again that these are inseparable aspects of learner, wherein each one completes the others. However, in many classrooms, affective domain or constructs are left behind because we tend to focus almost entirely on the cognitive aspect. And we also discussed already about this one last meeting, wherein the primary reason for this is that most of the subjects are cognitive domain heavy. No, and we're focused on cognitive aspect on what the students knows, while we ignore how they feel or value the subject matter. So since our topic is all about developing effective assessment tool, so I want you to remember these three things, no? I want you to consider these three things when we start assessing the effective domain of our learners, because these are the things that may help us, that may guide us, no, towards deciding to what kind of effective assessment are we going to do to our students. Number one, emotions change quickly, especially in young children and adolescents. Number two, since emotions change quickly, use varied approaches. Do not just rely on one method, use multiple ways to measure the same trait. And number three, and the last one, decide on your data. Do you need to know how an individual students feel, or are you looking for the general mood of the entire group? So those are the three things that we need to consider. Number one, emotions change quickly. Number two, we have to use varied approaches. And number three, we have to decide on what data are we going to assess, or are we going to collect. We're talking about developing an effective assessment tool. There are three methods. There are three primarily feasible methods that we can use, no, in assessing the effective targets of our students. Number one, teacher observation. Next is student self-reports. And the third, peer ratings. And let's break these down one by one. So the first method is teacher observation. Now remember that teacher observation is a cornerstone of formative assessment. To do this right, you must determine in advance how specific behaviors relate to your target. You start with a clear definition of the trait, then list the student's action that represent both the positive and negative sides of the trait. Now, how are we going to identify our behavior? So when creating our tool, list what students with positive and negative behaviors actually do and say. So kumbaga, you are going to think of what are the positive and negatives behaviors that usually a student may have, may do and say. And this list will become your starting point for your observations, giving you a concrete checklist of what to look for. Here are some examples. Positive behaviors include things like asking questions, helping others, and volunteering. On the flip side, negative behaviors might show up as frequent absences, lack of involvement, or a stated dislike for school. Now, these are often called as approach behaviors versus avoidance behaviors. Now, I want you to remember no, this idea that if a student or when a student has a positive attitude or a positive behavior, they are also prone on showing approach behaviors. Kumbaga, when a student has a positive attitude, they have that approach behavior, meaning they move toward it. Because naman sila positive attitude, meaning they are going to do things because they like doing that thing. So they move toward it, no? They approach towards doing the thing. But when a student has negative attitude towards something, no, negative behavior towards something, they show avoidance behaviors. They move away from it. So that's no the example of how positive and negative behaviors um, teacher observation works. So since we already know what type of data are we going to observe about positive and negative behavior, which may lead to approach or avoidance behavior, let us now discuss naman what are the types of teacher observation um, because teacher observation is primarily divided into two main types, which is structured and unstructured. So simple na siya ma masabtan because we already have a clue from the title of the type itself, no? Okay, let's start with the unstructured. Talk about unstructured from the word unstructured, meaning dili siya structured. So this is also known as anecdotal, okay, which may also be used for the purpose of making judgment. So normally, this is an open-ended where you simply record what you see. Kumbaga, if unsa mo mang makita sa mga students, marto mo kang malista. Kumbaga, it's general. It's realistic and it is not limited by a form. But it's hard to find time for it to do regularly. Okay? So, sa unstructured behavior, again, it's general. Wala siyang fina-follow na guide, no? As to what type of behavior are you looking for on a certain or towards your students. Kasi it's unstructured, kumbaga, kung ano yung mga na-observe mo sa mga student mo, yun yung masusulat mo. Now let's proceed to the other type of observation, which is the opposite of the unstructured, the structured. So in this type of teacher observation, this uses a checklist or rating scale that is prepared in advance. So as you can see, diba, the difference between unstructured and structured. Kasi it's structured, from the word structured, meron ka talagang struktura, guide, no? Kung ano yung mga hinahanap mo, kumbaga, na observation towards your students. So, it takes more time to set up but is much faster and more efficient to use in a busy classroom. So, yun din yung naging benefit ng structured compared to unstructured na type of observation. Because although it takes more time to set up, no, to prepare all of these checklists and rating scale, but in terms of the observation, it's much more faster and efficient, especially if we have a busy classroom. Now, remember that we also have some considerations, no, to consider for observation or for teaching observation. Now, if you choose observation, remember to record the date and place. Keep your description separate from your interpretation and be sure to record both positive and negative behaviors. And this is also one of the most important thing. Avoid personal bias and record your findings immediately so you don't forget any important details. Okay, so yun yung mga dapat nating take into consideration if we're going to use teacher observation, assessing the effective or the effect of our students. Now let's proceed to student self-report. Now this is the most direct way to get into our student's head. It can be as simple as a casual conversation or as formal as a written survey. Now, let's proceed muna on student interview. You know, this is the big advantage of an interview is the ability to clarify. Kumbaga, since you are interviewing your students, um, kumbaga merong clarification, no? Kasi they can be able to discuss to you why do they tend to have this behavior, no? You can probe for more detail and watch their body language. And it helps avoid the vagueness, kumbaga, yung di klaro, that often comes with written forms. So since we're talking about written form, no, as what I have mentioned, now written reports usually follow two format. So you have their constructed response and selected response format. So talk about constructed response. So this is where students are given the opportunity to construct, their answers like an essay or short answer, which is great if you want to understand their in-depth beliefs and their values. And the other one, selected response, from the word select, meaning are giving them the freedom to just select with all of the options that you have created, no? So these are like rating scales or checklists. So this is also best naman for ensuring anonymity and collecting data quickly. Same with teacher observation. We also have to take some considerations in creating these methods of student self-report, no, especially with constructed or selected response format in the written forms. So in creating this, we have to keep them focused and brief. No, ensure anonymity whenever possible to get honest answers. And you have to avoid double-barreled items. So meaning double-barreled items, meaning don't ask two questions in one sentence. So make it specific, every question. No, do not make it vague for your student na it will be open for a lot of interpretation. So para at least um focused yung answer na makukuha mo kung ano yung talaga yung gusto mong sagot, no, from your student. Now let's proceed to the last but not the least method in assessing the affective domain of our learner, which is peer ratings. Now, this is the least common method used, no, in assessing the affective domain of our student because it's harder to score and interpret. However, you can use naman this one since teachers are always present. You can use per ratings like guess who or sociometric approach to verify what you are seeing in the classroom environment. For example, you want to verify your observation after conducting the teacher observation. So you may use peer ratings kasi baka may mga na-observe ang mga kaklase nila na hindi mo na-observe. So if you are focused on the interaction, no, or social part of the behavior of your students, then you may use peer ratings. So again, those are the three methods, no, in assessing the affect of our student. Number one, teacher observation. Next, student self-report. And last one is peer ratings. Now, let's discuss on how are we going to choose the right method. So, when choosing the right method, it depends on the target. Okay, remember that. So, if you want a general reaction, observe. Okay? If you want to diagnose a deep-seated attitude, then use a self-report. And if your target naman is social, then peer ratings are excellent. And also, you need to consider how will you use the data. If the results will affect a student's grade, then you must use multiple approaches to ensure that you aren't getting fake results from a student just trying to please you on a self-report. Kasi students will have a tendency if they will know that you are interviewing them for a grade, they will always fake it, no, their responses because they want to give you the best answer. Kumbaga, they will really give you the answer that you really need, wherein they are not telling you an honest answer. So that's why na if you're using it for grading, then you must consider using multiple approaches. Okay? So to end this one, now remember the bottom line is the choice of method depends on your context, your targets, and your own comfort levels in using these tools. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to this video recorded discussion. and lesson 3.2, developing effective assessment tools in measuring the effect of our learners. I hope you learned something for today and thank you all so much and see you on our next meeting.